The Gas Station, A Christmas Story. The old man sat in his gas station on a cold Christmas Eve. He hadn't been anywhere in years since his wife had passed away. It was just another day to him. He didn't hate Christmas, just couldn't find a reason to celebrate. He was sitting there looking at the snow. It had been falling for at least an hour, and he was wondering just what it was all about when the door opened and a homeless man stepped through. Instead of throwing the man out, old George, as he was known by his customers, told the man to come on in, sit down by the heater, warm up. "Thank you, but I didn't mean to intrude," said the stranger. "I see you're busy. I'll just go." "Not without putting something hot in your belly," George said. He turned and opened a wide-mouthed thermos and handed it to the stranger. "It ain't much, but it's hot and tasty. Stew. Made it myself. And when you're done, there's coffee, and it's fresh." Just at that moment, he heard the ding of the driveway bell. "Excuse me, I'll be right back," George said. There in the driveway was an old '53 Chevy, steam rolling out of the front. The driver was panicked. "Mister, can you help me?" the driver said with a deep Spanish accent. "My wife is with child, and my car is broken." George opened the hood. It was bad. Looked like the block had cracked from the cold. The car was dead, and he said, "You ain't going anywhere in this thing." And he turned away. "But, mister, please help." The door of the office closed behind George as he went back inside, and of course he went to the office wall and got the keys to his old truck. And he went back outside and walked around the building, opened the garage and started the truck. Then he drove it around to where the couple was waiting, and he said, "Here, take my truck. She ain't the best thing you ever looked at, but she runs real good." George helped put the woman in the truck and watched as it sped off into the night. And he turned and he walked back into the office. "Glad I gave him that truck, and them tires were shot, too. That old truck is brand new to—" No one was there. George thought he was talking to the stranger, but the man had gone. The thermos was on the desk, empty, with a used coffee cup beside it, and, well, at least he got something in his belly, George thought. George went back outside to see if the old Chevy would start. He cranked it slowly, and it started. He pulled it in the garage where the truck had been, and he thought he'd tinker with it for something to do. I mean, after all, Christmas Eve meant no customers. And he discovered that the block hadn't actually cracked. It was just the bottom hose on the radiator. And, well, shoot, I can fix this, he said to himself, and so he put a new one on. Those tires ain't going to get him through the winter either, and so he took the old snow treads off his wife's Lincoln, and they were like new. Of course, he wasn't going to drive the car anyway. As he was working, he heard shots being fired. He ran outside, and beside the police car, an officer lay on the cold ground bleeding from the left shoulder, and the officer moaned, "Please help me." George, of course, helped the officer inside, and he remembered his training. He'd received medic training in the Army, and he knew the wound needed attention, and so he thought, well, pressure to stop the bleeding, and of course, the uniform company had been there that morning, and he had clean shop towels, and he used those and some duct tape to bind the wound. "Hey, they say duct tape can fix anything," he said, trying to make the police officer feel at ease. Something for the pain, George thought. All he had was the pills he'd used for his back. These ought to work. He put some water in a cup and gave the policeman the pills. And, "You hang in there. I'm going to get you an ambulance." Well, George went to the phone, but the phone was dead. "Well, maybe I can get one of your buddies on that there talk box out in your car." And so he went out to find that a bullet had gone through the dashboard, destroying the two-way radio. So he went back in, and he found the policeman sitting up. "Thanks," said the officer. "You could have left me there. The guy that shot me is still in the area." George sat down beside him. "I would never leave an injured man in the Army, and I ain't going to leave you." George pulled back the bandage to check the bleeding. Said, "It looks worse than what it is. Bullet passed right through you. Good thing it missed the important stuff, though I think with time you're going to be right as rain." George got up, poured a cup of coffee, and said, "How do you take it?" "None for me," said the officer. "Oh, you're gonna drink this. Best in the city. Too bad I ain't got no donuts." The officer laughed and winced at the same time. The front door of the office flew open, and in burst a young man with a gun. "Give me all your cash. Do it now," the young man yelled. His hand was shaking, and George could tell that he'd never done anything like this before. "That's the guy that shot me!" exclaimed the officer. "Son, why are you doing this?" asked George. "You need to put that cannon away before somebody else gets hurt." The young man was confused and said, "Shut up, old man, or I'll shoot you. Now give me the cash." The cop was reaching for his gun. "Put that thing away," George said to the cop. "We got one too many in here now." He turned his attention to the young man. "Son, it's Christmas Eve. If you need money, well then, here. It ain't much, but it's all I got. Now put that pea shooter away." George pulled $150 out of his pocket and handed it to the young man, reaching for the barrel of the gun at the same time, and the young man released his grip on the gun, fell to his knees, and began to cry. "I'm not very good at this, am I? All I wanted was to buy something for my wife and son," he went on. "I've lost my job, my rent is due, my car got repossessed last week." George handed the gun to the cop. "Son, we all get a bit of a squeeze now and then. The road gets hard sometimes, but we make it through the best we can." He got the young man to his feet, sat him down in a chair across from the cop. "Sometimes we do stupid things." George handed the young man a cup of coffee. "Being stupid is one of the things that makes us human. Coming in here with a gun ain't the answer. Now sit there and get warm, and we'll sort this thing out." The young man had stopped crying, and he looked over to the cop. "Sorry I shot you. I just went off. I'm sorry, officer." "Shut up and drink your coffee," said the cop. George could hear the sounds of sirens outside. A police car and an ambulance skidded to a halt. Two cops came through the door, guns drawn. "Chuck, you okay?" one of the cops asked the wounded officer. "Not bad for a guy who took a bullet. How'd you find me?" "A guy down the road reported gunfire." "Who did this?" the other cop asked as he approached the young man. Chuck answered him. "I don't know. The guy ran off in the dark, just dropped the gun and ran." George and the young man both looked puzzled at each other. "That guy work here?" the wounded cop continued. "Yep," George said. "Just hired him this morning. Boy lost his job." The paramedics came in and loaded Chuck onto a stretcher. The young man leaned over to the wounded cop and whispered, "Why?" Chuck said, "Merry Christmas, boy, and you too, George, and thanks for everything." "Well, looks like you got a doozy of a break there. That ought to solve some of your problems." George went into the back room and came out with a box, and he pulled out a ring box. "Here you go, something for the little woman. I don't think Martha would mind. She said it would come in handy some day." The young man looked inside to see the biggest diamond ring he ever saw. "I can't take this," said the young man. "It means something to you." "And now it means something to you," replied George. "I got my memories. That's all I need." George reached into the box again. An airplane, a car, and a truck appeared. They were toys that the oil company had left for him to sell. "There's something for that little man of yours," said George. The young man began to cry again as he handed back the $150 that the old man had handed him earlier. "And what are you supposed to buy Christmas dinner with? You go ahead and keep it for your family, okay?" The young man turned with tears streaming down his face. "I'll be here in the morning for work. Is that job offer still good?" "Nope, I'm closed Christmas Day," George said. "See you the day after." George turned around to find that the stranger had returned. "Where'd you come from? I thought you left." "I've always been here," said the stranger. "You say you don't celebrate Christmas? Why?" "Well, after my wife passed away, I just couldn't see what all the bother was. Putting up a tree, it seemed like a waste of a good pine tree to me. Baking cookies like I used to with Martha just wasn't the same by myself, and besides, I was getting a little chubby." The stranger put his hand on George's shoulder. "But you do celebrate the holiday, George. You gave me food and drink and warmed me when I was cold and hungry. The woman with the child will bear a son, and he'll become a great doctor. The policeman you helped, he'll go on to save 19 people from being killed by terrorists. The young man who tried to rob you, he'll make you a rich man and not take any for himself. That's the spirit of the season, and you keep it as good as any man, George." George was taken aback by the stranger, and he said, "And how do you know all this?" "Trust me, George. I have the inside track on this sort of thing, and when your days are done, you will be with Martha again." So George watched as the old leather jacket and torn pants that the stranger was wearing turned into a white robe, and a golden light began to fill the room. "You see, George, it's my birthday. Merry Christmas." George fell to his knees and replied, "Happy birthday,